Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Anybody likes sitting way in the back? You sitting way in the back because you're going to attend to guests or what? If you sat right up here, you'd also be in a straight line. And they think they're in a straight line too, but anyway. Thank you very much. We've been reading in the evenings from Canto 10, Chapter 15, leading up to the Dhenukasura story, or the killing of Dhenukasura. And we're not there yet, but we're almost there. Boys, up to verse 20 of chapter 15, they've just been playing, like 6-year-old boys will sometimes do. But, it's transcendental play because they don't know that Krishna is the personality of Godhead. They have all confidence in his opulences and we've been hearing, he has unlimited potencies, and one way of describing the category of those potencies, there are some that are exhibiting and another set of opulences or another set of potencies that are exhibiting sweetness. And in Braja, I think that's the electrician. To be okay. So we're in Vrindavan with Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys. We heard yesterday the dearmost of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends is Sridham. And Sridham is Radharani's brother. Actually, his very best friend, amongst many best friends. And Subal, and we heard about Stoka Krishna. Stoka Krishna was born around the same time as Krishna, and he even looked a little bit like Krishna, so his father gave him a name like Krishna, so he would think of Krishna, Stoka Krishna. And many others, so many, many, many others who were very dear to Krishna. So a whole series of activities together, and etc., etc., etc. Very, very beautiful description. Very attractive description. One wants to be with Krishna when you hear those wonderful descriptions. So they're coming now to a forest with very tall fruits, tall trees with fruits at the top. Tala, vana, or palm tree fruits. So here's the verse. It's text 21 and then 22. The cowherd boys said, "Oh, Rama, Rama, mighty armed one. Oh, Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants." There, that's the cue. They're giving him a cue. There's a Dhenukasura in there, and you're probably going to have to destroy him because he's keeping people out of the tall forest. Not far from here is a very great forest filled with rows of palm trees. and the Sanskrit is Tala Ali. Ali means rows of Tala, palm trees. Sankulam, filled with fruits. Purport. Listen to BBT purport. As stated in Sri Varaha Purana. Oh, by the way, many Puranas have the same pastime. So it's not exclusive. There are some pastimes in the Bhagavatam that are just not found in any other Puranas, but it's rare. And it's one of the ways that the Bhagavad Purana is identified. But this is in many other Puranas. In Sri Varaha Purana, it is stated, not far from the western side of Mathura, at a distance of 2 yojanas, yojana is 8 miles, so 2 times 8 is 16 miles. At a distant western side of Mathura, 2 yojanas away, is a holy place named Govardhan, which is most difficult to attain. So if you look at that of Vrindavan, there's Mathura. It's a little bit north, but pretty much west, almost all west, and it's Govardhan. It is also stated in Varaha Purana, quote, not far from the western side of Mathura, 1 yojana away, 8 miles, is the forest known as Talavan, which was guarded by Dhenukasura. So the math makes it really easy. It's in between Mathura and Govardhan. That's where, geographically, where it is. Thus it appears that the Talavan forest is located midway between Mathura and Govardhan Hill. The forest of Talavan is described in Sri Hari Vangsha as follows, quote, the land there is even, smooth, and very expansive. The earth is black, densely covered with darba grass, and devoid of stones and pebbles. That's really important if you're going barefoot, taking care of cows. Harivangsha. So here's Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur. Within a short distance of 8 miles from Govardhan, there is a very large forest called Talaili. So it's Tala Ali. Talaili. And same, Varaha Purana. About 1 yojana, 8 miles west of Mathura, is the forest known as Talavan. This should be understood to be southwest, as that is where it actually lies. There is a forest filled with tala trees, or tala. Jiva Goswami writes, O Lord, who plays Rama, since you have that name, perform one pastime for us. Or you can play enjoyment and happiness. You cause play, enjoyment, and happiness. Please give us happiness. Then repeat his name out of respect. In order to encourage you, we first call your name. There's nothing you cannot do, O courageous one, Maha Sattva. It's a little bit like in Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna addresses Krishna by certain names. That name invokes some portion of Krishna's unlimited nature. So they're expecting some courage from him. And that is to get those tall fruits, because there's a demon there protecting the tall forest. They've heard. In the commentaries, it doesn't say this in the Bhagavatam, but in the commentaries it says it was known in Braja that this tall forest is guarded by Dhenuka, and some brave Vrajvasis went, and Dhenuka not only killed them, but ate them. Oh, Krishna, You give us happiness because you attract everyone, or Krishna, by your nature of giving the highest bliss. O destroyer of sinners, they had directly seen Krishna kill Matsasura and others. You are suitable to kill Dekasura, who is obstructing the tall forest, and you can make the fruits fall. By addressing him as a killer of demons, they indicate that Krishna's strength would be successful. They use the word Mahasattva to cause excitement, that is, greatly courageous in this case. By showing that Balaram's strength was not being put to any use. They're expecting him, and he does. Not far from here at Govardhan, there is a tal forest. Generally, they herded the cows there. Now, this was their first day out. Or at least the beginning part of the chapter is the first day out. Not necessarily the first day of Kasura. Harivangsha says, quote, the two sons of Vasudeva, along with friends, would go to pleasing Govardhan with all the cows. The place was not far away, about 4 kroshas. I had to look it up. A krosha means 2 miles. So 4 times 2 is 8, which is 1 yojana. About 4 kroshas from Govardhan. As stated in the Varaha Purana, not far from the western side of Mathura, at a distance of 2 yojanas, is the holy place named Govardhan, which is most difficult to attain. Paragraph. It is also stated in the Varaha Purana, not far from the western side of Mathura, 1 yojana away, is the forest known as Talavan, which was guarded by Dame Kasura, unquote. West means southwest in this verse. And the reason is because that's the location in relation to Mathura, southwest. Harivangsha also says, from the north of Govardhan, the 2 boys gazed at the pleasant, huge Talavan, which takes shelter on the bank of the Yamuna. Paragraph. Standing on the northern part of Govardhan, in the northeast section, they looked at the forest. Paragraph. From the edge of Madhuvan, what do we know about Madhuvan? Those of you that are fans of the Dhruva Maharaj story. What's Madhuvan? Yeah. It's where Dhruva was sent by Narada, and it's where he did his tapasya. So Govardhan is not far from Madhuvan. From the edge of Madhuvan, within which Mathura is situated, starting from part of the Yamuna in the southeast, there is a village called Talasi at the edge of the forest. The forest is southwest of the village. You got the geography? I'll read the paragraph and then I'll read it again. West of that is the place called Tara Para. The forest of Talavan is described in the Harivangsha as follows. The land there is even, smooth, and very expansive. The earth is black, densely covered with darba grass and devoid of stones and pebbles. So we're getting, they're into the particulars. Like, where is this place geographically in the map of Vrindavan? So I'll read that paragraph again. Standing in the northern part of Govardhan, in the northeast section, they looked at the forest. From the edge of Madhuvan, within which Mathura is situated, starting from part of the Jamuna in the southeast, there's a village called Talasi at the edge of the forest. The forest is southwest of the village. West of that is the place called Tara. Tara. The forest of Taliban is, so that's, it sounds like what is being described here by Jiva Goswami is names of the places at that time when he was there. Now, I don't know if they have still the same names today as when Jiva Goswami was there. But it's something like what comes later. Jiva Goswami explains where Dhenukasura was killed. It goes like this. Krishna killed Shalva. Shalva went to attack Krishna to avenge the death of Shishupal because they were friends. So he had done tapasya. Lord Shiva gave him a benediction. He wanted as a benediction an airplane that could harass the Yadus. So he got one, like a super airplane, Vimana. And he came in his Vimana to attack Krishna in Dwarka. Krishna came out of Dwarka, did battle with Shalva, and there's details, and eventually Krishna defeated Shalva. And while he's still outside of Dwarka, Narada Muni showed up right on time to say the right thing at the right time in the right way. He always does that. And he said, guess what, Krishna? Dantavakra is looking for you, wants to kill you. He also wants to avenge the death of Shishupal. And he's just outside of Mathura. So Krishna summoned a chariot, and in a moment, his chariot took him all the way from Dwarka to Mathura. On the western side, because you think of which direction is Dwarka from Mathura, it's west. He came at the western gate. He had a battle with Dantavakra, and he slayed Dantavakra. And Jiva Goswami says, even today, there's a place that there's a corruption of the name Dantavakra, and the name of the village that's just outside of the western gate of Mathura is whatever it is, something that's a derivative of Dantavakra's name. So similarly, where the Taliban forest was during Krishna's time, the scriptures tell us, and Jiva Goswami is saying, even today, there are names that resemble those names, in verifying this is where the place is. Sanatana Goswami in his commentary, O Lord who plays, Rama, since you have that name, perform one pastime for us. Jiva Goswami had borrowed some from Sanatana Goswami. He is his elder, his uncle. Please give us happiness. They repeat his name out of respect. In order to encourage you to make the tal fruits fall, we first call your name, meaning Balaram. There is nothing you cannot do. Maha Sattva, O courageous one. O Krishna, then, can you give us happiness because you attract everyone, Krishna, by your nature of giving the highest bliss? O destroyer of sinners, they had directly seen Krishna kill Vatsasura and others. You are suitable to kill Dhenuka, who is obstructing the tal forest, and you can make the fruits fall. Because of his great courage, he can kill the demons, and because he kills the demons, he is known as the most courageous. Maha Sattva. By these names, they indicate that Krishna and Balaram need not worry from these demons. And then it gives all this Varaha Purana, and where is the west of Mathura but east of Govardhan. It gives all these references. Sanatana Goswami. Jiva Goswami writes, now this is from Priti Sandarbha, it's not just commentary on the verse, but it's describing, a shadow or inappropriate ecstasies. Apparently, some people say, so we'll hear. Here is another example of inappropriate anubhav. Oh, Rama, Rama, my mighty armed one. Oh, Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants, not far from here is a great forest filled with rows of palm trees. Unquote. There is an abhas. Abhas means shadow or reflection. Shadow or reflection. Abhas. There's an abhas of sakya or friendship by unsuitably urging their friend to go to a fearful place. I mean, you don't urge friends to go to a fearful place. That would be, where some of you like reading Prabhupada's books, and some of you that like reading Prabhupada's books have heard this term before, rasa abhasa, or a contradictory statements of rasa. So Rupa Goswami says some rasas are complementary, some rasas don't mix. And it's dissonant, it's grading, it's not proper. So one might argue, some people argue, that for a friend to urge a friend to go to a dangerous place, that's not right, it's abhas. Actually, however, telling Krishna and Balaram to do this is not unsuitable, since they know Krishna has prowess similar to themselves. Having similar vira nature, they do this to nourish priti for him. Priti, their loving feelings. Arjuna's actions are similar. Arjuna's action is the entering into a forest and protecting. What's his name? It was that Indra was after him. Mayadanava, very good. Mayadanava. So Mayadanava encourages. Arjuna went to sport with Krishna in a large forest filled with fierce animals. So why would you go with a friend into a place where it's dangerous? But it's not. He's recognizing Krishna's power. It's that kind of friendship that you recognize the vira or chivalry or strength of another. Arjuna went out of prema, knowing Krishna's powers, to destroy huge beasts, doing destructive activities. The cowherds expressed their knowledge of Krishna's powers in the following. Quote from chapter 12. This is chapter 15, referring back to chapter 12. This is the Aghasura. Has this living creature come to swallow us if we enter it? If he does so, he will immediately be killed, like Bakasura, by Krishna, without delay. It's not a contradictory mellow, it's a complementary mellow, complimenting Krishna for his prowess. Then one more reference from Chaitanya Bhagavat. And in Chaitanya Bhagavat, of course, Chaitanya Bhagavat is about Lord Chaitanya, but there is a mention in that Chaitanya Bhagavat about the Talavan forest. Another day, the Lord and his friends went to Talavan, where they killed Dhenukasura and ate the tal fruits. Commentary. Really short. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:15-21, which is the verse we just read, Talavan is described as Su Mahad Vanam Talali Sankulam, a very great forest filled with rows of palm trees. Paragraph. The word Dhenuka, Mariya, means by killing the demon Dhenuka. This pastime is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, text 32 of this chapter, as follows. Lord Balaram seized Dhenuka by his hooves, whirled him about with one hand, and threw him into the top of a palm tree. The violent wheeling motion killed the demon. And that's text 21. And we have one more, text 22. Translation: in that Talavan forest, many fruits are falling from the trees, and many are already lying on the ground, but all the fruits are being guarded by the evil Denuka, Duratmana, the evil one. BBT purport: the demon Denuka would not allow anyone to eat the delicious ripe palm fruits of the Talavan, and Krishna's young boyfriends protested this unjust usurpation of their right to enjoy the fruits in a public forest. So they didn't call the police, they just called Krishna. Vishwanath Chakrabarti writes, from here, from Govardhan, not too far away, about 8 miles away, there is a very famous forest called Talalasi. Brahapurana says, about 1 yojana from Mathura, in the west portion lies Talavan. This should be understood to be southwest, as that is where it actually lies. This is a forest filled with tau trees. Then comes a reference, a quote. The trees are dark, like the color of bees, and thus they must have very tasty fruits. The fruits are under the control of a Rodhani of Dhenukasur. O Ram, this is a test of your valor. O Krishna, this is a test of how you can vanquish evil. The Sakyabhav that we hold for you will not be restricted by the show of power, rather with a show of courage. Vira rasa. Our Sakya ras will increase. They're just 6-year-old boys, but they have different moods. Jiva Goswami writes, quote, well, so what? Unquote. Fearing that question, they reveal their desire. Some of the fruit are falling, and others have fallen from the tree. They are plenty, and they have fallen on their own. Thus, they are very sweet, since they are ripe, and will uselessly rot. If you do not have to take effort, to make them fall from the tree. This is good fun for Bhadra month, since all the tau fruits are ripe then. According to Vishnu Purana, this incident took place after the defeat of Kaliya in the summer. So the Bhadra month comes after the summer. In order to give, the order is given in Vishnu Purana and is accepted. Harivangsha also describes killing Dhenuka after Kaliya's defeat, although that's described later in this chapter. It's the sequence is reversed, but that's okay. Then you boys should go there and take the fruit, common in the forest. But Dhenuka is obstructing, so ask him and take the fruit. Oh, he is very evil. They hint that after Krishna kills him, they can take the fruit. That was Jiva Goswami. Here's Sanatan Goswami. There was no effort needed to make the fruits fall. Patanti, patitani. Generally, ripe tau fruits fall on their own. It is understood the pastime took place in Bhadra month, since the fruits fall at that time. And again, it's Jiva Goswami just borrowed from Sanatan Goswami. Forest fruits are to be enjoyed by everyone, but the demon is protecting them. They should be taken from him. And then finally, really short, text 23. Oh, Rama. Oh, Krishna. Dhenuka is a most powerful demon and has assumed the form of an ass. He is surrounded by many friends who have assumed similar shape and who are just as powerful as he. There's no BBT purport. There's a short reference by Jiva Goswami. They encourage Krishna in 2 verses by saying that no one can eat the fruit because the fear of the demon is very strong. Ati viryaha. They call out to Balaram and describe the demon as very strong to produce hatred in him for the demon. They called to Krishna, telling him it is a donkey, in order to make Krishna, the crest jewel of fun, laugh. Taking the 2 words together, he's a strong donkey who cannot be killed by anyone. The demon is surrounded by relatives who will help him. And similar, Sanatana Goswami. This is our last reading for this session. They encouraged Krishna in 2 verses by saying that no one can eat the fruits because of fear of the demon. He is very strong. They called out to Balaram and described the demon as strong to produce hatred in him for the demon. Same. They describe to both of them that he is a very powerful demon in the form of a donkey, therefore they cannot disregard him. He is surrounded by relatives and friends. Anyai. By mentioning of others, the cowherds hope to remove the 2 boys' indifference to going. We're getting yet another picture of life as a cowherd boy, in case that's your destiny one day to become a cowherd boy. If that's your spiritual form in the spiritual world and you just don't know it yet, we're getting a picture of what the cowherd boys do together. Because we've been speaking on this, we'll go back to chapter 12, when the boys are younger. There's just 4 and 5. And even when they're younger. Anyway, when they're 4 and 5, they're taking care of the calves, and there's verse after verse after verse after verse of their playing. And they're just playing like children will play. Imitating the dance of the peacocks, standing in postures and dancing like the peacocks would dance when they strut, and standing before a pond like a frog ready to jump into the lake. And one of the boys would roar, and others would run like a fearful deer hearing the roar of a lion. Some would make their arms flap like birds, and you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just playing and playing and playing. Sometimes wrestling, sometimes sitting beneath a tree while Krishna would play upon his flute. Just enjoying. And what it says in this chapter is very similar pastimes, but the mood was different. The mood of Krishna was different. In the younger age, it was playful, and in this age, he was enjoying these activities within his mind. And the cowherd boys were enjoying that Krishna was enjoying, and Krishna was enjoying that the cowherd boys were enjoying that he was enjoying. And in this way, they just were absorbed in their loving exchange with one another, aware, as the earlier parts of the chapter, that all the residents of Vrindavan, all the bushes and creepers and trees and grass and earth and rocks and then all insects and bees and all the other forms of life were being sent into ecstasy in various ways appropriate for their position. And that's Vrindavan with the cowherd boys. Then comes, they want Krishna to show his prowess. And the statements that they wanted the tal fruits, specifically, there was elaborate explanation. It wasn't for themselves. There's no thought about for themselves within these boys. Their only thought is Krishna. So they wanted Krishna to enjoy the fruits. Now they also partook of the fruits once they had the fruits, but it was Krishna at the center. And they wanted Balaram. They specifically mentioned Balaram's name first, because he is the one that's going to go into the tal forest. There's other commentaries that say Krishna was playing like an ordinary person, an ordinary boy, that he was reluctant to go in to the tal forest because Dhenuka was said to be so ferocious. Now that's not, Krishna's omniscient and he's all powerful, so he's holding back in part for the pleasure of the cowherd boys, but also to have his elder brother step forward. And there's different reasons why he wanted his elder brother to step forward. I mean, it was his pastime. That was one reason. Another reason given by our acharyas is Dhenuka, in his previous life, was the son of Virochana. And Virochana was the son of Prahlad. And Lord Nrsingadev had given a promise that he won't kill anyone that's of your descendants. Although it wasn't his descendant, he was, in his previous life he was. And so Krishna wasn't going to kill him. He was going to have Balaram do it. So he held back. But Balaram took the cue and stepped in. There's other reasons. There are some very nice reasons. But it's a pastime. Another nice explanation is consistently the acharyas describe that Balaram, we talked about this a bit the other day, Balaram within him has all of the rasas, of starting with Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and he manifests himself as an Angamanjari in Madhurya because he just loves service in all the rasas. So in their childhood, it was friendship. It was friendship. Because they just played together. But when he turned 6, it's starting, like phases of the moon or something, it's starting to move into the realm of he's the elder brother. So when they're resting after playing for so long, Balaram is the one who rests first and gets massaged and so forth, including Krishna's massaging his legs and feet, like the elder brother and the younger brother. But it also has to do with the pastime. The shift has begun. And it's more fully manifest when they're in Dwarka. When the sister, Subhadra, Balaram has some idea of who should become her husband. And Krishna doesn't contradict him, but he just does this other thing. Anyway, their relationship is very dynamic and variegated. And according to the pleasure of Krishna, it manifests in different ways at different times. And very soon it's Balaram who's going to enter the Talaban forest and confront Dhenukasura first. And as we heard, take his 2 hind legs, he's just a 6-year-old boy, take his 2 hind legs in one hand, twirl him around, and toss him in the top of a tall tree. He's very powerful. Yeah, must have big hands too. Because this Dhenukasura is a really big guy. But powerful. So, power that doesn't have material yardsticks of what his hands can do, what his strength can do, and anything like that. And the boys are just, they don't go like, wow, you're Superman or something. It's just part of their activities together. And then the others come, his relatives and others that have similar shapes. And then now Krishna gets into the act, and they also toss them in the tops of the trees. And all the tall fruits fall down. And the boys have a tall fruit feast. Which means that now the people in Vrindavan can freely enter the tall forest. He's protecting and providing. One of the in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam, spend a little bit of time on this topic and then I'll end. The 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is called Prescribed Duties of Mankind. And the prescribed duties of mankind means dharma, and one who protects dharma is protected by dharma. Dharmo rakshata rakshataha. You've heard that phrase before? Dharmo rakshata rakshataha. One who protects dharma is protected by dharma. So prescribed duties provide protection. And the greatest of all prescribed duties is bhakti yoga. Surrender everything to Krishna. Sarva dharmam parijajya mamekam sharanam braja. That's the topmost of all duties. So that the Sanskrit phrase, there's 2 Sanskrit phrases used. Raksha is one, that's protection, and poshanam is another. Poshanam. Poshanam can have different meanings. It can mean protection explicitly, or it can mean sustenance or maintenance. So the Supreme Lord wants to give protection to the residents of Vrindavan that can't enter the tall forest when it's his forest. It's Krishna's forest. But Dhenukasura's keeping people out because he's envious. If I can't get these fruits, then the others can't get the fruits. So they're removed. Dhenuka and his buddies are removed. So that not just the cowherd boys, but all the residents of Vrindavan, because they're upholders of Dharma, they're protected by Dharma. They're protected by the protector of Dharma, Krishna. And so their spirit is not specifically dharmic. They're little boys, but their qualification for protection is their devotion. So prescribed duties of mankind lead one, if properly performed, to higher consciousness, detached work, and working as one is obligated in the language of Bhagavad Gita, and then gradually in that state to become eligible for bhakti. And these cowherd boys, they're not really eligible for bhakti. They're at the topmost stage of bhakti. They're at prema bhakti stage. They're protected. And the residents of Vrindavan are protected. Poshanam and rakshataha. But they're calling to Krishna explicitly, not like, before a deity in a temple room or something, but they're playing with him and asking for protection. And of that which is provided very naturally by nature, that they should be able to enjoy. The residents of Vrindavan should be able to enjoy, but everyone's afraid. Oh, Krishna to the rescue. He has this, again referring to yesterday, the discussion, he has the sweetness aspect and he has the majesty aspect. And he always has both. And sometimes even when doing his sweetness, which is a greater, besides more attractive, it's even greater than the opulence aspect. But he sometimes, even when he's doing the greatness, the sweetness, he shows the greatness. Because they're just playing, even with Dhenuka come running out of the forest, charging at Balaram, and he says playing. And the boys go, yay, to all fruits, Vijay. Vrindavan is a very mystical, charming place. We should be more and more, that by hearing these pastimes of Krishna in detail like this, more and more attracted to Vrindavan. Hankering, eagerly hankering for that opportunity to become part of Krishna's pastimes. Not just like watching a movie or a cartoon or something, but becoming part of Krishna's pastimes. So let's see if there's some discussion. A lot of people came to your home today. You know all these people? Most of them? Some of them? Okay. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance. So this demon Dhenukasura, was he appointed by Kansa to protect that Kalvan, or he was just residing there?
I don't know the answer to that question. The demons all seem to have like a Kamsa connection, but was he specifically assigned to that place to protect it? Don't know. I can explore and see if I can come up with the answer.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for wonderful pastime of Krishna. So one thing which you mentioned that we should be hankering to be part of Krishna's pastime. So my understanding is when we are saying that, then we should, when we're reading these wonderful pastimes, then we just visualize them in our mind, and we also be part of it by remembering it again and again. Is that what you?
That's the beginning, and then it keeps going. That is, supposing you're born in a certain country and there's this hero that did some things, heroic things, depending what country you're from. And, you can eulogize the hero, remember the hero, and just understand like how valiant or how kind or how wonderful or something. But you can't be with that person. But Krishna, you can be with Krishna. So that there's different, all that is just saying is there's different kinds of histories and there are different kinds of contemplations of something. But even beyond is being a participant with Krishna in his eternal pastimes. Because at least notionally our understanding is these pastimes are in fact eternal. eternal in the sense that as he is performing this pastime on the earth planet, and then the pastime is ending, in some other place the pastime is beginning. And another place, like the sun is always rising. The pastimes are in fact eternal, beyond time as we know it. So, wishing to be a part of those loving exchanges with Krishna in different forms or different rasas, but it's part of our Gaudiya Vaishnav teaching is encouraged for us not just to remember Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam, and that's in the vidhi level, the rule and regulation level, and gradually aspiring to be part of Krishna's pastimes. That's a matured stage of the remembrance. It can come naturally, but under the guidance of qualified persons who are teaching us the bhakti process, following Lord Chaitanya, particularly Rupa Goswami, we're encouraged to desire to enter into those pastimes with him, in addition to remembering and hearing and so forth.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Balaram has the mode of service to serve Krishna in different rasas. So he serves in Santarasa also by manifesting himself as spiritual world or something else.
It's not, Shanta is not service. He manifests, but it's not service. Is that clear to everybody? Okay, good. Just like a little Prabhupada story. When Prabhupada first came to America, he didn't have mridanga. And when he got to America, there was a little bongo drum or tom-tom drum. He would play on that kind of a drum, or somebody would. Eventually, devotees were going back and forth to India, so he described what a mridanga is. No one had seen one, and someone brought back a mridanga. The story I heard, Prabhupada was in Los Angeles, and they very happily, unbroken mridanga, carried for the first time to the West. They placed it before Prabhupada in his quarters in Los Angeles. He immediately paid his obeisances to the mridanga, took his upper garment off, uttariya, wrapped it around the mridanga, and said, "This is Balaram." Because the paraphernalia, tadiya or paraphernalia used in Krishna's service is Balaram. So later, when the devotees in Los Angeles started making fiberglass mridangas, they called it Balaram mridanga, based upon what that little exchange with Prabhupada. So so on your altar, or the temple altar or whatever, there's paraphernalia that you regularly use. And when you regularly use paraphernalia in worship of Krishna, that's a manifestation of Balaram. So, but it's not. He does this in the mood of service. He does whatever he does in the mood of service. But it's not. Shanta is not service. The mood of the paraphernalia is not to serve. The mood of Balaram is to serve. And that's dasya. Next. Anybody? Let's see if there's somebody else.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. In the human form of life, this prescribed duties are there for the upliftment of the consciousness or the elevation of the consciousness. in the lower forms of life too, I had this question, starting from the aquatics as the forms increase. Does their consciousness also increase?
Oh, yeah.
And what activity in those forms makes that consciousness elevation?
Sense perception and, functions of the mind become more elevated. In the negative, the covering of avidya becomes reduced. In the positive, the capacity for awareness or cognizance increases. So the mental functions become more developed and the sensual functions become more developed because the covering has become reduced. You got it?
Yes, but is it a choice in that
No.
form of life?
No. It goes along with the life form. Now, amongst dogs, some have different modes of nature, don't they? Some bark a lot, some cry a lot, some seem to be very happy. Anyway, the modes of nature are acting. But, in a general sense, dogs do what dogs do. They bark, they wag their tails, and they chew on bones. Dogs, when they get that body, it's dictated by the life form.
So is there a suffering in that?
Of course. The whole place is dukkhalayam ashashvatam.
But only thing is they don't have a choice, even though they suffer.
Well, the choices were made previously to get that life form. And now they're paying their dues for those past choices. Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. As we're discussing now, if the dog is in devotee's family, the dog may get prasad to get elevated, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that is the benefit of...
Well, but generally we don't keep dogs. I want to put a gate on that concept.
But lucky if...
Generally speaking, we don't.
Again.
Okay.
Thank you. So maybe...
Online? Not yet? Okay. About the relationship between Dhenuka and Kamsa?
Yeah.
I thought you might.
I was in Garga Samhita. In Garga Samhita,
Yes?
it says that Dhenuka was a friend of Kamsa.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's another reference also, similar, that all these other demons, Chanura, Mushtika, Dhenuka, they're all listed together as Kamsa's agents.
It's one thing to say, because birds of a feather, they have some friendship.
Mm.
To say that Dhenuka was assigned that forest, you hang out and protect that forest is different.
Mm.
That was the question. Okay, Shankadari is next. No, he's not here, excuse me.
I don't know much about the Sri Harivamsa. Is that some other literature?
It's there's a term for it. Starts with a C. This is something to Mahabharata. Not compendium, it starts with a C. I can't remember. It's connected to Mahabharata. She'll look it up. She'll find it. It's a literature by Vyasadeva. Anything else?
Krishna Maharaj, is there any significance of the demons are in the animal form, like in a donkey, and there is a crane? So is there something?
The form has something to do with their mentality. Now they assumed that form, like Vatsasura assumed that form for convenience sake. But they had another form that wasn't looking like that form, and they assumed that form for their, attacking Krishna purposes. Bakasura, etc., Aghasura. They assumed that form. Okay. I guess we're done. Thank you very much, Prabhupada Ki Jai.